Elena Grant had built a billion-dollar technology company, but an accident left her paralyzed below the waist. Months later, she needed to fly across the country for an emergency board meeting. Her private jet waited on the runway, yet two experienced pilots refused to take responsibility for the flight. Elena sat quietly in her wheelchair inside the private terminal, wearing a tailored navy suit and holding a folder of urgent documents. Her assistant explained that the pilots feared complications during the flight. Elena understood their concern, but missing the meeting could cost thousands of employees their jobs again today. Then Daniel Reed arrived carrying a worn flight bag. He was a single dad, former military pilot, and now worked maintenance at the airport. Daniel had spent years away from professional flying after choosing stability for his young daughter. When he heard Elena needed help, he approached without hesitation that morning. The chief pilot immediately dismissed Daniel. He said Daniel was only a maintenance worker and couldn't simply enter the cockpit. Daniel calmly explained that he held the required commercial certifications and had flown similar aircraft before. The pilot still refused, insisting Elena's condition made the trip dangerously complicated at all. Elena looked at Daniel and asked whether he genuinely believed he could fly her safely. Daniel didn't make promises he couldn't guarantee. Instead, he requested the aircraft records, medical clearance, weather report, and emergency procedures. His careful questions impressed Elena because he treated her as a person, not a problem. Daniel studied the jet carefully while Elena's assistant arranged the necessary medical documentation. He checked accessibility equipment, cabin restraints, communication systems, and emergency evacuation procedures. His daughter, Sophie, waited nearby after school, carrying a backpack. Daniel had promised to pick her up, but Sophie encouraged him to help first nearby. After reviewing everything, Daniel explained that Elena could fly safely with several modifications and a medically approved support plan. The pilots remained skeptical. Daniel didn't argue. He offered to conduct every required pre-flight check himself under proper supervision, accepting responsibility only within his legal qualifications and professional experience at all. Elena finally asked Daniel why he was willing to help when everyone else had refused. Daniel glanced towards Sophie and explained that his daughter had taught him something important. People often need someone willing to see possibilities before they can see them themselves. Elena's expression softened, and she trusted him. The airport supervisor reviewed Daniel's credentials and confirmed his previous flight experience. Surprisingly, Daniel had once been considered one of the company's strongest pilots before leaving aviation to raise Sophie after his wife died. Elena realized the quiet, maintenance worker had a professional history far more impressive than anyone expected. The aircraft was prepared. Daniel helped arrange a secure transfer system so Elena could move from her wheelchair into the specially adapted seat. Nothing was rushed. He checked every connection twice, explained each procedure clearly, and made sure Elena remained comfortable. For the first time that morning, she felt hopeful. Before boarding, one pilot privately warned Daniel that failure would destroy his career. Daniel answered that refusing reasonable help without evidence was also a decision with consequences. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply believed safety came from preparation, teamwork, and respect, rather than fear or assumptions alone. Once inside the cockpit, Daniel completed the checklist while the experienced crew monitored him. Elena watched through the cabin window as the engine started. Sophie waved from the terminal. Daniel returned her wave before focusing completely on the instruments. The jet began moving toward the runway under a clear sky. During takeoff, Elena gripped the armrest tightly. Daniel kept his voice calm over the communication system and explained each stage without making her feel helpless. Minutes later, the aircraft climbed smoothly above the clouds. Elena looked outside and realized the people who had said impossible had been completely wrong quickly. Halfway through the flight, unexpected turbulence struck. The cabin shook sharply, and Elena's assistant became frightened. Daniel immediately followed emergency procedures, reducing speed and adjusting altitude. He communicated calmly with air traffic control and coordinated with the crew. Within minutes, the turbulence weakened, leaving everyone breathing easier again immediately. Elena asked Daniel whether he had been afraid. He admitted that fear was normal, especially when responsible for other people's lives. The important thing, he said, was refusing to let fear make decisions without evidence. Elena smiled, because the lesson applied equally to business and to life always. When they landed, Elena's emergency board meeting was still possible. She reached the headquarters with minutes to spare and prevented a major crisis. Investors approved the decision she needed, employees kept their jobs, and the company's future remained secure. Daniel expected nothing except permission to return to his maintenance shift. Instead, Elena invited Daniel to her office. She offered him a senior aviation safety position with a salary that could transform his family's life. Daniel hesitated, worried about leaving airport work and Sophie. Elena promised flexible scheduling and explained that she wasn't buying his loyalty. She was recognizing his character. Daniel accepted only after discussing everything with Sophie. His daughter hugged him and said she knew he could do something extraordinary. Daniel laughed and reminded her that helping someone safely was more important than becoming famous. Sophie replied that perhaps ordinary people could still create extraordinary moments that mattered. Months later, Elena created a foundation supporting accessible private and commercial aviation. Daniel became its safety director, developing procedures that helped passengers with disabilities travel more independently. He also continued flying occasionally. His story spread through the aviation community, not because he was fearless, but because he prepared himself. Daniel's greatest reward wasn't Elena's job offer or the recognition that followed. It was returning home every evening to Sophie and knowing his choices had shown her something valuable. A single dad had stepped into a cockpit when others stepped away, proving that courage begins with preparation and compassion.